grieving is something we absolutely must do. You know, it's interesting because I've seen so frequently that when there is grieving, the instinct of everyone around the grieving person is to say, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, don't cry. You know, the grieving person cries and people will take their sari or a shawl or a towel and, you know, wipe the eyes of the person who's crying. Not just to comfort them, but in a don't cry way. And we try to say things that we think will make the person feel better, but ultimately which really are much more about trying to get that person to no longer grieve. So we say things like, it all happens for a reason, right? You'll get over it. Time heals all wounds, right? When you hear all of these platitudes, and yet everyone who's lost a very dear one knows, you never actually fully heal. Meaning that there is always an awareness that that person is no longer with you. Now, what ends up happening, though, is that you no longer move through the world in pain. Who you are changes because of the loss of that person. So it's not that you heal it over like a tiny little cut that I get that scabs for 2 days and then the scab goes away and then after a week there's no more scar. It's not like that. That happens when you lose a goldfish, but not when you lose a loved one. And not even for everyone who loses a goldfish. I know plenty of people who have been pretty severely traumatized by the loss of a goldfish. So I think I was one of them, actually, in my childhood. But when it's really a loved one, it's not something that just heals over and goes away. But what happens is who you are changes. To have loved and to no longer have that person with you. Because what happens is you actually bring that person into you. And this is particularly true when it's a parent or a spouse or a very, very close friend, is you start to experience that person inside of you. So you can actually hear them speaking sometimes. This doesn't happen to everyone by any means, but it happens to a lot of people. They can hear that person speaking. Sometimes they feel like they can even see that person. Not in flesh and blood, but just the experience of that person. And a lot of times, there's a sense of you know what they would do, and you find yourself doing it. You know what they would say, you find yourself saying it. And it's almost like that person you have lost now lives in many ways in your heart. And this is true whether you can actually see them or hear them or not. So who you are changes, because no longer are you able to experience them outside of you with your physical eyes, with your physical ears. You have to use the inner eye, the inner ear, the inner sense of knowing to feel them. So do not think, too many people say, God, I'm still grieving, when is it going to end? Well, first of all, there's no right timeline. There's no correct way to grieve. The only incorrect way to grieve is to try to push it away. I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. I'm not sad, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But allow your heart to really feel it. And what I have found on a personal level is it doesn't come in one fell swoop. It's not like, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to grieve for the next 48 or 72 or 600 hours and then I'll be done. But there's always an initial period of grief. And then as life moves on, suddenly it'll just hit you like a wave. And it's momentary. It's 30 seconds. It's a minute. It's 2 minutes. And just allow it. Allow that experience of that sadness to just flow through you. I actually find that it's very powerful to just raise my hands literally to the heavens, to the sky, to the universe, and to literally just say, and I plant my feet firmly on the ground, and it's just okay. Flow through me, here we go. And don't try to get into an intellectual drama about it. Don't try to tell yourself a story. Just allow the emotion to be there. And if you find that you feel like you haven't fully grieved, well, give yourself some time to do that. Sometimes we make ourselves so busy. And in the very beginning, sometimes it's helpful. Get the house ready, get this ready, funeral arrangements, this, that, the whole thing. But at some point, you have to stop doing and just allow yourself to sit in the presence of that experience, however it may arise. And what's really interesting I have found is that it tends for me to go something like this. There's grief, and it's this utter, all-encompassing, like a tidal wave tsunami sadness. And then there's joy, or laughter, or anger. And they tend to come like these kind of short-lived but powerful waves like the ocean. So you're in the moment of grief, and in the moment of grief you see the person you love, and then you smile, and you're just there in joy. Maybe you remember something, and you laugh, you smile. Or sometimes from the grief, depending on how you've lost them, there may be a moment of anger. How dare they? How dare the universe? Just allow that. Don't get into the drama of it. Try to keep it as non-verbal as possible. The words just pull us out of the experience. If there's grief, let there be grief. When there's joy, let there be joy. If there's laughter, let there be laughter. Because we also then come in and say, oh my God, how dare you laugh? They've only been gone a week, a month. How can you laugh? How can you smile? And on the other hand, we'll say, my God, they've been gone 3 years. How are you still grieving? So we're always trying to tell ourselves what's right, what's not, getting that verbal commentator in there. Just let it be nonverbal. Wherever there's sadness, let there be sadness. Where there's joy, just let it be there. There's laughter, let it be there. There's anger, let it rise and crash and flow. That person meant a lot to you. And I know in your case, it was a parent. And it's always very obviously hard, but also really an amazing opportunity to lose a parent, because it suddenly forces us into a maturity, not just in what we do, not just in effectiveness or efficiency, but actually in our way of thinking about our own lives. That as long as our parents are still there, we're not really forced into. And it's really, it's a whole rite of passage, coming of age, even in your middle age or later middle age, when that happens. So just be compassionate with yourself. Allow whatever is there to be there. There is no right way to celebrate Diwali. But maybe what would be very touching for you or precious for you would be to do something on this day to bring light to others in your Father's memory. So that where there's grief and sadness, there's able to be light for others. That in the same way that He brought you light and love in His memory, how can you bring something to others? How can you do something for others? And that would be a beautiful way to honor Him each year. And if Diwali night finds you in tears, so be it. I mean, really, just so be it. There's nothing wrong with tears. They wash our eyes and allow us to see. If the tears are there, it means we live. It means we've opened our hearts. It means we've loved. It means we're present, fully in this human incarnation. So welcome the tears as well.